Welcome to the Firepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff McDowell Jr.
And I'm Bennett Grove.
Between us, we have 20 years of firefighting experience.
And over 15 years of experience building, growing, and leading small businesses.
Each episode, we get after it by discussing leadership, life, and development.
We'll also unpack the wins and losses that we've experienced along the way.
You ready, big dog?
I'm ready, my man.
Let's get it.
Welcome to another episode from the Firepreneurs Podcast. Today, I have on Kory Pearn. Kory is an 18-year firefighter in St. Thomas Fire Department from London, Ontario, Canada. He has been in publishing for 18 years, and he has also founded and started a magazine called Crackkyl Magazine, which is cracklmag.com. Founded in 2019, has two publications out so far, and has a third on set to come out. It is a firefighter wellness, mental and physical wellness magazine about firefighter lifestyles. He's going to fill us in with a lot more information about Crackle, but firepreneur Kory Pearn, both firefighter 18 years and also now business owner Kory Pearn, is joining us as firepreneur from Canada. Kory, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So I told you ahead of time that I butcher intros, man. Did I leave anything out? Pretty good. And got it right.
I think you did well.
So St. Thomas Fire Department, you spent all 18 years there?
That's right. Yeah.
And so one of the things I didn't put in the intro, but I found fascinating, because I remember when I went through this journey myself, when I was trying to become a firefighter, I was looking for information. How can I sharpen the axe, right? How can I get smart enough to do well on the test and do well on interviews? And so you took that and actually wrote a book, Guide to Becoming a Firefighter. When did you do that? And walk us through a little bit of that history.
Well, that kind of unraveled without being intentional. So when I started my journey, I came from a trade background, and I didn't even know how to turn a computer on when I started pursuing firefighting. I had my wife do my resume. I didn't even know how to open Microsoft Word, let alone put together a resume. So I found that I had over my head right out of the gate. And I felt like I had the skills and the mindset to take this on, but I felt where my weakness lied was in the foundation of building up who I was, trying to get across to a fire department why I would be a good fit. And so that was where I kind of had that epiphany of, I need to, take control over my own destiny here. So I worked on my resume. Once it was kind of built out, I realized that, no one knows what you're doing more than you. So how can my wife write my resume, not knowing really the emotion behind what is written on that paper, how many days it took for that course, or how long it took to get that apprenticeship? So I started to kind of compile information and learning how to represent yourself to somebody else or to a company, and in this case, a fire department. So I just started making notes. And then as I was going through the process, I was finding that there was a lot of misconceptions. There was a lot of misleading information. And I thought, well, if for a job that apparently everybody wants, why is there no guideline to actually the strategy behind tackling this career? So that's where I started to basically compile notes, and it kind of formulated into what became my first book. And I put that all together myself. I created it all in Microsoft Word, that was a task in itself. Definitely not the right software to be trying to build out a book, because as soon as you change one thing, it pushes the whole document. So I literally, I could write the book on writing a book in Microsoft, because I think it was almost the beginning and the end of me. But it basically, I did a self-publishing. I self-published. I printed 500 copies of it, and it was just a very early on window into kind of where I wanted to be. I was very passionate about becoming a firefighter once I got that fire bug. And I grew up never wanting to be a firefighter. So my story was very simple, but yet it was so deep into the roots of who I wanted to be or what I thought I could be, that it just compelled me to have others be able to have, I guess, that feeling of walking in the fire hall and being part of something that's bigger than yourself.
So I know this about you, and I want to share it with the audience. But you come from, so before you went into writing this guide and going down the path of pursuing firefighting, you came from a home services business or a services business. It was HVAC refrigeration, right? Something to
That's
that
correct.
effect.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that was a family business that your parents started, or how did that come about?
Yeah, that's right. It was a family business. I have two brothers. Both of them are very artistic, and I shared a different brain. I liked the mechanical aptitude. You know, we would have, you know, when we're off at school or winter vacation, I would go to work for 2 weeks and work in the shop and cut up copper. And I just love kind of being hands-on and working. I liked being rewarded for, you know, for time served. So yeah, it was something I always wanted to do. Right through high school, I knew I had visions of taking over the business. I loved the trade. I just found every day was different. And it was a challenge, and just kind of checked all the boxes as far as something that you could do for the rest of your life. And then having aspirations of running a company. But I mean, at the time, I didn't even really understood what it meant to run a company. You know, you think you get it, but you don't. I was still immature, even though I was 20, you know, coming out of 18, working, you know, putting yourself in the business owner that called you for your service, you know, and trying to get outside of your own head and thinking about what they're going through before you know, coming into fixing something, or, you know, and trying to be there on time, and all those things. Everything mattered, and it mattered on every call, and it, you know, and you wake up and do it again. So, yeah, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, kind of learning to be on your own, be on a roof in the blowing snow, you know, snot frozen to your face, and you're trying to figure out some wiring diagram. And there's something about that just, it changes you. And so that's what I've learned from the trade. I think my biggest takeaway is just that, seeing what you're made of. And that's definitely what the trades do.
I feel like, especially with, you know, that story, it had to, you wrote the guide on becoming a firefighter, trying to dive into what departments were looking for and try to outline it for other people that are pursuing that career. But man, coming from the trades, it had to, I can only imagine that it had to just better sharpen you for when you became a firefighter, because that's what we do. We solve problems. You got to have bedside manner with EMS patients, right? And it's some of these customer service skills I'm sure you learned in the trades, and then going out there and troubleshooting problems. I mean, did you find that just maybe even gave you a leg up in your fire department career?
Absolutely. I think anytime, you know, that empathy of understanding what someone else is going through. Again, there was some maturity that was happening. You know, if I could go back now and be, you know, in the trade with the mind that I have now, it would be so much further down the road on where, you know, kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. But yeah, I think mechanically, yes, it was a huge feather in my hat. I didn't even realize at the time how seamless it was going from refrigeration, heating, air conditioning into the fire service. When you're talking about gauges, pressurized cylinders, welding, CO calls,
Yeah.
motors, your electrical, you know, troubleshooting, your control wiring, it's just blueprints, and like, just you name it. It's a seamless transition, and it actually, I didn't get it coming in, but I get it now.
I mean, I got to imagine like pump operations. You're
everything.
probably the guy that ran the SCBA room and
Yeah.
did all the mask testing.
Yeah, that's right. And still do.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably a pretty seamless transition there too, right?
Yes. And yeah, it's definitely, you know, those things there was skill levels or things that I kind of gravitated to. So, that made sense to me to be involved with those type of things. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you write the book, but you get hired. You're at St. Thomas Fire Department. You've been there for 18 years. But you kind of took a interesting turn once you started on your firefighter path. You also went into publishing. So you've been in publishing for the same amount of time you've been a firefighter, right?
Well, I guess, yeah. So I started, I mean, when I wrote the book, I was self-published, sold those copies around the world, even though it was a Canadian guide to becoming a firefighter. And then I was published and sold those magazines, through libraries and different things. So I've been involved with the publishing side of things that way. And then I got a real taste of running or being involved in publications. I was given an opportunity by a Canadian-based B2B magazine company that just took a chance on me. I was actually looking to get published by them and have them carry my book, and then ended up kind of having a relationship with one of the group publishers, and we just kind of chatted from time to time. Kind of enjoyed each other's company, and as much as they weren't in a position to help me with the book at the time, but an opportunity came up to sell for a magazine, and then I did that. So there was a space that opened up. A girl had gone on maternity leave, so she had 2 publications, and an opportunity came to take those 2 on after I had kind of an original mission. I had a buyer's guide that I was selling. It was for a trade show, and anyways, I doubled the sales for that, and they were just
Nice.
kind of blown away by that type of efficiency and I guess tenacity to take that on. And I loved it. I picked up the phone and I called people because I believed in what I was doing. And then so then I took on 2 publications after. They thought I would be a good fit and something for me to try. And I jumped in. I couldn't wait. I had all these boxes and magazines and past issues and contacts and binders. And it was like, I remember we had just moved. So I was in our bedroom at the time with a folding table with notes on the wall, and that's how I started. And, that whole like, look good, feel good. It was like the opposite. I felt it was a good experience though, and again, just fell in love with publications. Just the trade shows, going, the challenge of meeting new people, understanding what their challenges are, and trying to figure out how to get to their market. Just really, just enjoyed every minute of it. And it was just such a great opportunity.
It's interesting because I think that, the entrepreneurial journey is really a challenge in and of itself, in its own lane. And then being a firefighter in its own lane is just as challenging of a career field as is out there in the civilian sector, right? In its own lane. And then there's people like you and firepreneurs where you merge the worlds, so even at this point, you're not owning the company, but you're basically almost like an entrepreneur, because you're taking this publication and selling it as if it's your product that you own. So you're crossing those 2 worlds. And so then I imagine you had to deal with time management challenges, right? And so you kind of had to overcome some of those obstacles, I imagine, right?
Yes, time management for sure. I mean, that would be enough, right? Fire career and running and doing sales for publications on the side, but then you throw family in there.
Yep.
And young children. So my wife, she was able to be off for a year maternity, but then when that year was up, you have a 1-year-old, at home with our first child, and I enjoyed every minute of that too. So I would work when she had her naps. And I tried to balance that. And then we had our second child, and it was even more work. And that was the challenge in itself. So I would, between taking care of the kids and doing play dates and everything else, juggling that, and then moving into, going back to night shift, coming home in the morning, and then maybe they slept for a couple hours or an hour in the morning, trying to make some calls and really try to push that envelope on time management. So,
and we talked about this a little ahead of time where, like my department, we worked a 48-72. So we're on duty for 48 hours, off for 72. It was rotating. So it's the same schedule every 2 weeks because it lined up that way with the days. But your schedule, and then people hear fire department schedules, they hear 24-48s, they hear 48-72s, they hear all these schedules, but you guys had a shift schedule. Will you explain that to the audience?
Yeah. So we have the 10s and 14-hour schedule. So we have a block of 4 days, and then we have 6 days off, and we have 4 nights that we work, and then we have 4 days off, and then we have a 3 and 3. So it's 3 days, 3 nights. And that's our cycle.
So basically you're living in a 3-week world.
Yes.
Yeah. And we talked about this before the show. It's like, I was a firefighter for 17 years, and I've had this business. This is our 10-year anniversary and actually, let's see, 5 days. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So in business. Yeah. Thank you. And, but for that time where I was, both full-time firefighter and in the business, I lived in a 2-week world, and we chatted about that. Like, payroll was 2 weeks. We pay bi-weekly. My fire department schedule was 2 weeks. And so therefore a lot of our family functions were wrapped up in those 2 weeks. So like I lived in a 2-week world, and it's really hard to explain that to people who don't have to face shift work or aren't dealing with juggling both having a professional career, which is a business, and being a full-time firefighter and wanting to master your craft on that side, which, it seems like the infinite game trying to master your craft as a firefighter because there's so many different skills that you're expected to know. So like just the management of that time is such a challenge. But that's probably what led going through this yourself, kind of for going on the timeline here, is probably eventually what led you to Crackle Mag, because you have experienced it yourself. I know that I did as well, where as a firepreneur, or in your case, working in the publishing side, being a firefighter, you're juggling time, you've got family at home, you've got little ones. It just feels like you're always chasing time. And
Absolutely.
then that leads to physical degradation. It can lead to mental degradation, which can lead to more physical degradation. Can you kind of walk us through your why for starting Crackle Magazine?
Sure. I mean, I guess it kind of goes back, but when I was working on these publications, and you look at time, you look at bandwidth, and that whole, like, if you enjoy what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. And I totally felt like I never worked, because next thing you know, I'm on a fire truck, I get home, I've got children, and then I'm dabbling with some sales and making phone calls and talking to people. And then, and then I'm back to work, and I just felt like I was never working. And I felt like I was always working, I guess, at the same time, but it was always different. And I enjoyed every single minute of it. But yes, there was one point between the publications, you'd only, you look at deadlines. Typically, I think their salespeople, they try to have 16 deadlines was kind of what they were fighting for a balance in the salespeople. And at one point, I think I had 29 deadlines. So I was balancing, and we haven't talked about this, but I created a firefighter career expo. So I was able to take kind of the book and then moved it where I could meet fire recruits and in the trenches, I guess you could say, and meet them face to face, and try to kind of deliver the information in another way, that would help them kind of get their heads wrapped around it. So all this was going on, and so you look at bandwidth. I was juggling things that you couldn't even really understand how much work I had, but yet it was something I didn't talk about. I would get stressed, deadlines, you would get stressed. And there was an underlying kind of, unsettling feeling as time went on. Mm-hmm. And I did have some health problems with that. I would definitely say a lot of it associated right back to stress and not realizing how stressed you are until, you get out of something or you change something. And so that was that was kind of where I was at. But in the middle of all of it, I had kind of thought of an idea to create a new magazine, firefighting magazine, that focused on the firefighter as an individual, something that was a lifestyle and health. You take a men's health magazine, men's journal, women's health, fitness magazine, and kind of roll it into one and help us do better. And at the time, it just wasn't the right time for the company that I was pitching it to take on. It didn't make any sense, to be honest, and I get it. But I still thought it was something that seemed viable to me. So then you fast forward, I had realized that I was in a cul-de-sac. I was in a cul-de-sac that I was as far as I was going to go in this publishing company. I had people that, there was a lot of people that came and went, and I was still there. It was 10 years. And I just noticed some of the people that had other titles, publishers or associate publishers. I'm sure there was pay upgrades. I'm sure there was more responsibilities. But at the end of the day, I realized I was never in the running for any of these opportunities. And one was because I was a full-time firefighter. And I totally get that too. It didn't make any sense. And then how can you give one of these titles or, move somebody up in one company when you know that they're involved in another? So I totally understood that. And it just made me kind of step back and reassess what I wanted. And I thought I could do this for the next 10 years, but then what? And I don't have anything to show for it. And so I just thought, I'm in a cul-de-sac and I need to change what I'm doing. Workload wasn't anything I was worried about. I knew I could take this on. I had already kind of, I've started up quite a number of projects that starting something new didn't scare me at all. It was actually probably one of the most exciting things I could have been doing at the time. And then kind of building out this platform. So it was years ago, I had already come up with my 6 pillars: the health, the lifestyle, fitness, finance, relationships, and stress. I already knew what my topics were going to be. I had an idea what they would be. I already mocked up my own cover. I already built out a website, so I started to I had already done all this work and then I had left it. So I just kind of started looking at it again. I started getting really excited, and I felt like I was in a position to take it on. And I was okay with not having all the answers. I was okay with, trying to find people to surround myself with that did have some answers that I did not have. And I just, thinking back again, growing up in a household where my dad ran a company, the people that he worked with were everything to him, in the sense that he treated them like family, but yet he was still the boss. Like there was that fine line. And I was groomed my whole life to be in a position to take on projects like this. And just to enjoy it. So that's kind of how Crackle came to be. Of course, this is pre-pandemic. So it was about May of 2019. That's when it was sitting outside. I had another friend over from the fire hall. He was also looking at trying to figure some things out in his life. So we were brainstorming. We had meetings weekly on brainstorming of topics and things that we would brainstorm 15 minutes on his stuff, and then we'd bring 15 on mine. And all this stuff, cool. A lot of it came out of it, knowing that, there's a chance here to do something. So then I decided to, I think it was basically December of 2019, where I created the publishing company. I registered the corporation, and it became real. So I had, once you're talking to a lawyer, things get really real. So
they're definitely real if there's a lawyer involved at that point.
Yeah. And I had to quit my other job too. And and that was really, really hard. Letting go of the people and, and just so grateful for these opportunities. And, So anyway, it was hard there's some things that had to happen that I didn't want to make those decisions, but knowing that I had to jump in with 2 feet if I was going to even have a half a chance of bringing this to life. So
there's a lot of things to unpack there. But if I can go back to that decision, I mean, I can only imagine after spending that many years working with a group of people that decision in and of itself to walk away from them and do something else was hard. But it's also what is expected of an entrepreneur when they take a leap is that sacrifices have to get made. And so you were essentially sacrificing that career I know it wasn't your full-time career, which was firefighting, but that other part of your life that had been there for so long to then close that door and then open the new one. That's a hard decision for a lot of people to make. And set firefighting aside, just to make that decision sometimes is hard for people to make. So I imagine that was difficult. But then I imagine at some point you really had to have a conversation with yourself, which I wanted to kind of unpack some of that, which was some of your whys, like you're 18, 17 years at this point, you'd probably be 16 years into your firefighting career ish.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm about to go walk through this door of starting something. And if I'm hearing you correctly, some of those whys, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because our podcast, we talk with firepreneurs about, you should be clear on your why you do something, because there's going to be adversity and obstacles to overcome. And I like to say I have a bucket of whys, because when I'm facing a challenging time, I need to reach down in that bucket and say, why am I putting myself through this? Oh yeah, my kiddos, right? My kids at home, I'm trying to build something, right? Or why am I putting myself through this? And it's like, there's always the answers, those bucket of whys that help you get through those tough times.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a couple of yours were, listening to your background, you had all these different varying skills that kind of intertwined. And it's like, part of it might've been you wanted to go put those to test, but then also you wanted to build something that would possibly still be there when your post fire department career, or maybe even for your kids. Is any of that, or some of your whys?
Yeah, I think all of that. Definitely. One was, I just felt like we all have, listen to the kitchen talk at the fire hall and you'll know my why. We're all trying to navigate and figure out this career that's hard enough as it is. And then we just keep, I like to say we fall into these traps, and we have a mentality that sets us up for extending ourselves financially. We have a personality that basically doesn't allow us to be vulnerable with our relationships. And then we have, we're always under the scope, I guess, of doing the right thing. Usually in our friend groups, we're the A-type personality. So we're the go-to people. And we just have so much riding on before we even get out of bed in the morning, which typically we didn't even have a good night's sleep. Mm-hmm. We're already behind. And I just thought a magazine is just a front for trying to do better, trying to figure out how we can do this job and get out on the other side and have a bit of a life that we're not, we haven't given or sold our soul for everything. We become, you could be, defeated. You just want to go find isolation somewhere and drink every day, or you're just done being in that limelight, or, managing people, or, I think a lot of times firefighting becomes kind of, as you get up in your roles, it becomes a babysitting position sometimes, opposed to running what you think from the outside looking in, running a fire department. So I guess I just wanted to unravel what makes us so complicated, and that we have these shortcomings. And I think firefighters, we want these answers. I think we want to do better. We would like, when no one's watching and we're home alone, that we know who we are. And I don't think that's the case for a lot of us. And I think a lot of us are grasping. And I think the common threads would be family and relationships are so important to us, and they're in our DNA to belong. And But when we don't belong to things, or we don't like going to work because of a captain that we, maybe skews us and makes us feel, or doesn't allow us to act the way we want to act because they're upset about something or whatever. I just, we're so influenced by our surroundings as well, good and bad. So maybe, yes, we're going out again tonight. It's a probation party on Friday. It's our family just keeps getting pushed aside because we're trying to be everything to our brothers and sisters, but yet, we should just say no sometimes and maybe go home. I had that. I still deal with that. So it's that balance. And so this is where the magazine it sits. It's starting a conversation. Yeah. I hate falling in and having the same arguments with my wife, coming home. I know it's not all her fault. I know it's not all my fault. So where how do you fix that? So something, that was a pretty basic thing, but it's an everyday in your face. You go to work, now you're not talking to your wife or saying goodnight because you're mad or you're, whatever, and you're trying to prove a point. I just don't get that. So trying to figure it out,
Lord knows that if you're trying to get into some of the minds of firefighters, you're going to have an endless amount of content.
Yes, that's what we're finding. Magazine. Yeah. And, it's, that was that's my major why. The other one is everything else. It was a challenge. I thought, again, I've never been afraid of work. Things that scare me are it's not that. So, it was a challenge and something that, I enjoy when I don't have all the answers, when I didn't know how, it wasn't the work that was scaring me. It was running the accounting side of things. And how am I going to take care of paperwork and taxes and, how many people do I need around me in order to get this done, and then be able to, compensate them properly for their time, but yet I can't pay them to be full-time. So it's like, how am I going to bring this together? And I've put together a team that this is probably the thing I'm most proud of, is the team of people that I'm working with. I'm just so excited to when I see what they're producing and the amount of care and respect that they have even between each other, that we've never met. We've only been on Zoom calls. When you think about this business has been started on Zoom calls. And I don't even think half our team have legs. You only see them from here on.
Yeah.
And we always joke about that. But so, it's been quite an experience. And my whys are changing, now my why is, trying to show up for these people too. And everyone's just excited, and I want to keep that hype going. So.
No, I love that. I think in the beginning we start with some whys, and the bucket starts to fill up with different ones, because the minute you bring people into your organization, just like you said, with your family, your family treated your employees like family. And,
yeah.
That's our guiding principle in our company. It's like, once you bring on people, you have to there's an obligation to make sure that the company takes care of them. And so then your whys start to evolve, or they start to fill the bucket up with new whys. I love that. And, the piece that I thought is fascinating, because, if you think about our audience, firefighters who probably have a side hustle, is the one of the premises of our podcast here, is to try and support firefighters who have that time honored tradition of a side hustle, and you can relate to that. But we try to do our best to share our experiences, the wins and losses. And, one of the things I find myself talking with a lot of other small business owners about is that your organizations have some core functions, marketing, admin, production, or operations, whatever, if you call it production or operations. And then you have sales, and then it's a marketing, admin, admin and finance. And then you have your production or operations and sales. And so your magazine, while it's not a home services company, which you have experience in, it still has those components like you were just talking about. So you probably still face a lot of the challenges that anybody starting a business faces, is, who's going to sit in what seat? Do I have the right people on the bus? Are they in the right seat on the bus? And some of those things.
Yeah. And that, 100% was trying to find people, and, I didn't know any of them when I started this. So, I've surrounded myself. There's about, 15 of us now working on this magazine. Yeah. And I think that any entrepreneur, you're trying to, you want your business to outgrow you, but at some points you have to make decisions to grow the business so you can have more business. And it's that constant push and pull, questions of when do you make that move? How much capital do you really need to do it right? And starting a magazine is, it's a lot of capital, but if you start a landscaping company, you have to buy your tractors, your blowers, your weed whackers, you name it. And there's overhead there too, your companies, your trucks, your trailers, and then you still have accounting and everything else on the side too. So it's definitely how much risk for how little reward at the beginning. And it's not a balance. It's completely skewed. It's, trying to figure out that long-term goal. And that when you're talking about your whys, your why hat, that's what carries you through that. It's that hills and valleys. And I feel like when I started this company, you're at the top of the mountain, and as you get going, you start to come down the mountain, and as you get a little bit, as days roll into each other, there becomes a point where you reach a bottom where you're like, oh my, like you kind of realize how much work you've done to get to this point, and how, maybe tired you are, or how much money you've spent, but yet you still know that you have to go back up this mountain, because it's, it's to get to where you actually need to be. And I feel like I'm coming up the other side of a mountain right now. I feel like I've kind of weathered, the storm. A lot of it would be getting people around you, figuring out what product you're actually even going to produce. So the look and feel, the R&D stuff, getting connections, finding the right people to be writing. And so I feel like I'm on it up, on the upside, but I know that I'm going to peak and I'm going to be coming back down again. So timeline, I'm not sure when that will be, but I have to welcome that challenge. And I think that's the part that's exciting with running any business.
Yep. It's Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster. And the scenario you just described is kind of like that, right? You're going up, you're going to go back down, but then you're going to go back up again. And that's what the entrepreneurial journey is like. And, for us, I'm in Indiana. And so we have all 4 seasons, and, we have our peaks and valleys as well, from a multitude of scenarios, but namely, our peak season where we're the busiest is in the summer. And then in the winter time, we kind of slow down. So you can watch our graph go that way as well, but just like you said, when you're coming to the bottom, you're like, ooh, you look back, a lot of work, and we grew, 100% this year. Wow, it was amazing. And then but hey, you got to go do it all over again, because it's December now, but it's going to be March in 3 months. And then it's time to ramp back up, and then you're back on the climb, and so making that decision to, okay, now I know what I got to do to commit. I have to commit to this year to get ready for the growth next year. And so it's a roller coaster. And I think I love what you're doing with Crackle Magazine, because now that was just the entrepreneurial journey. But then again, we come back to, you're an entrepreneur, you're a husband, or a dad. And then you're a firefighter. And I can just relate to what some of the things talked about with forming the magazine. I can't even count how many sleepless nights, right? I worked to 48. So you weren't getting sleep during those 48. And then you go home and you think you're going to get sleep. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to get sleep on my first day back, but it's like you said, when you come off work, especially from 48, it's like, it feels like Friday, right?
Last thing you want to do is sleep.
Yes, I can't, so you want to stay up and have fun. And then like, okay, so then you then you don't get any sleep. And then your kids come in at 2:11 in the morning and they say, daddy, and they're still at an age where they call you daddy. And I have a bad dream. Can you come and take me back to sleep? You're not going to say no. You're going to be like, okay, let's go,
That's
and
right.
maybe you should say no. I don't know, but I don't, because I know there's only a certain age where they call me daddy,
That's
so
right.
then you don't get any sleep that night. And then you wake up the next day. And if you're a firepreneur, you got to go back to work. It's just in a different area of work. And
Right.
then you're facing the self-doubt, like, man, am I doing enough? Am I being a good leader in the business? Am I being a good firefighter for my fire department? Am I
Yeah.
being a good husband? Am I being a good dad? There's all this, like, man, it's self-doubt. And so Crackle Magazine, I love this concept because you're having the tough conversations that a lot of times firefighters won't go have with each other. You're giving
Yes.
them an outlet to go and read about the experts talking about it. So can you tell the listener what they might find in Crackle Magazine? Some examples.
Yeah. So, one thing, it's not a book full of recipes. So I like to get that out there. It's something, each article is kind of written or sourced to kind of give some takeaways, that a firefighter, or anybody really, but a firefighter can implement into their life. Whether it's through education, where we have someone that's a professional in sleep, or running clinics, where let's say it's a clinical based article, and then we have another article that's more of a fun, I would say fun, more playful article, where it's talks about behavior, or it talks about motivation and things like that, understanding willpower, and are you working with an asshole, like stuff like that, where it's what we would talk about at work. So yeah, and then another part of it is articles that allow you to say no to certain things. And I think that has to be part of your vocabulary. And it's hard for us to do that, and not feel guilt. So if we say no, how do you not feel guilty? So articles are based on that, trying to give us, one would be hold us accountable for certain things, and then in other areas I always say, it's not how much weight you can carry, it's how much weight you can set down. So we're trying to figure out that balance between when you're showing up and when you're saying, you know what, I'm checking out, and being okay with those decisions, and not feeling that guilt, and basically empowering the firefighter, that's essentially what the magazine's doing.
I have a bunch of questions about content and things of that nature. But first, can you explain why you chose the word crackle? What's the significance of it, the spelling, for the listeners who haven't maybe seen the magazine? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So the name was, trying to come up with something that a firefighter could relate to, that didn't say, I'm a firefighter, that sitting on your coffee table, when company comes over. I mean, some firefighters love that stuff. Others are more where it's something, they're not as wear it on their sleeve as much as others. And so I wanted a name that, it could be on the coffee table and you may not really know what it is, and it looks like any other health magazine. And I thought the name Crackle kind of summarized that. I think, I like to explain it as, when you're in a house fire and you hear the crackling and you hear, through the smoke, you can't see it, but it's there. So that's what we wanted Crackle to be, was something that was there for you, even though you don't have to have it in your hand, but that there's something, it is there for you, and it is happening when you want to, engage it, it's there. So that's what Crackle that's a tie in there. And then, the way I was explaining it before, as I was building it, was we're trying to build an immune system for firefighters. And so then I started thinking white blood cells, and I started looking at immunity, and noticed that there was a Y was kind of the symbol for immune system. So, and I kind of grew up listening to the band Jackal, and I liked the way that they spelt. So I pulled in the Y into the Crackle name, and it just I thought it was either a smart thing to do or it's dumb. So it was like one or the other. I'm a hero, or I'm out to lunch. So
well, if you make a new word, it's going to score well in Scrabble. So
yes, yeah. So yeah, that's right. So it was something that it seemed to kind of click and stick. And then we have the C with the underscore. We all know the red line is a down firefighter and loss of life. And So what I'm trying to do in the magazine is we want to keep firefighters in the green or in the amber area, just like a traffic light. So that's why the underscore is is an amber color. We've kind of pulled that into our masthead, and we want you to be in like, we don't want to get to the red line. We want to keep you going to work. And again, the magazine is written for active firefighters, or first responders. We want, it's our tribute to you going to work. And most of us want to keep going to work. It's just sometimes it gets hard. So the magazine, again, is that little push to help you kind of get through your career. And we did in our summer issue, we did basically a focus on retired firefighters, and they went back to their fire halls and they put their bunker gear on, and we got some quotes and things from them. But again, the whole article is pretty much summarizes the magazine. If we can all get to that point and come back and with a smile on our face and put on our bunker gear, or sit on a fire truck again, and be able to just really kind of look back on what we were actually a part of, and just and again, having that smile. I think it's pretty much what the magazine, if I can do that with this publication, and for some people, then, I'm exactly where I want it to be.
I love the imagery of the word too. I, personally speaking from my experience, when I heard it, one of the first things I thought about prior to us talking was, I thought of the crackle of a bonfire. You got some old campfire rocks around. You got a couple firefighters sitting around the fire, maybe drinking beer and listening to the crackle of a fire. And those are the moments too, like the imagery of that, and then that being the place where firefighters might have those conversations that they can't have with anybody else. You got a couple firefighters around a campfire drinking a beer. That's where sometimes the conversations that are the relief valve, of the stress and pressure that we keep. So I like that metaphor for your magazine, because that's, when there's so many things that people are struggling with, firefighters, men and women, and the career field is just filled with pressure, literally and metaphorically. And to have an outlet where you can go and grab something that's filled with helpful articles to help be there for you when you need it. Because I think that's one of the challenges of our career field, is that there's not enough conversations. I know that in my department I worked at, we had a suicide, and, here in Indianapolis, we recently had one as well. And, as many outlets as we can create to let people know they're not in it alone, and that other people face the problems, or that there's education out there, or experts that can help relate to what you're going through. And, you are normal, you are going through challenges that a lot of other firefighters are facing. I love the ethos behind it.
Yeah. And I think it's, again, if we can just spill some of that water out of the cup, and, and kind of, one, firefighters like to understand. So I think if we can understand why we're doing certain things and our behaviors, why do we come home and a messy counter drives us crazy. And then, so again, we're trying to figure out why these things happen, and then what you can do. And then something as simple as that, maybe on your days off, you don't start your day off fighting with your spouse. Maybe your week off goes a little bit better, right? Maybe you don't go out that night because now you're pissed off, so you just want to get out of the house. You've been gone for 4 nights, now you're gone again, and it's only because you're trying to come back into that household where you're you now have to co-parent or co-mingle, and so who's right? Is your spouse wrong because you want a clean counter, or do you just come home and clean the counter? If that's the way you want to operate, then I guess that's the way, that's what you need to do. We can't run our home life like a fire hall. We know everything has a place, and at the fire hall, and we tend to try to run our households that way. And it's just not practical. However, if we were able to achieve that, we would probably be a lot happier, and there would be no magazine.
You mean you can't have your wife clean the latrines on Tuesday mornings and have your kids show up for 7:45 roll call?
Yeah, that's right. So, we always we always just think about things from our perspective. And I always, try to put myself in the perspective of those around. Like, so what did my wife have to go through? I come home and I've been away and I'm waiting again. I've talked about this before, is when you get home from a long shift, you want everybody to run to the door. Like a big deal that you just walked in the house because you've been away and maybe you were battling fires and had a bad call. But the point is that your household is a system and that system carried on without you. So if you didn't have any calls, that system still had to happen, right? And so when do you come home and when are you grateful that your spouse managed the children and probably working their own career and just trying to get by themselves, and then have a husband or a wife that is at work and they're worried about them. They're not home. So when do we look at from our spouse's point of view to say, you know what, I always say, like, we're both doing everything we can. That's the only way to look at it. So I think if we can share that, respect back and forth, you're only one, if you're having, if I'm 1/4 of my family. I am not 50%. I am not the breadwinner. I am nothing. I am just a clog in this wheel, and we're all trying to figure this out, and so, yeah, I think that was kind of a big thing for me too, was, trying to project and look at what other people are going through as well. So
there's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's definitely a topic that it doesn't get talked about in fire departments enough. And so the fact that you're putting this in the magazine and these things is super critical, because like you said, your wife, you don't want your spouse or your significant other to have to relive. You don't want to relive everything and tell them everything that happened.
Right.
So if you don't want to relive it and tell them everything that happened, then you can't expect them to just intuitively know everything that you went through. So there's a dichotomy there of sharing the load. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions to go with that. But one of the things too, I feel like in fire departments, a way that we unwind with stress is the we'll call it nicely friendly teasing. Right. And so you kind of opened that up on one of your most recent issues. I don't know if that was part of the intent, but you brought on one of the rascals of all rascals, Steve Lemmy, Super Troopers, Tacoma FD. I thought that was a pretty awesome get for the magazine, because it just personifies the way that we kind of de-stress at times, is we just like to bag on each other, tell jokes, go in the day room and watch a stupid movie, and stuff like that. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, number one, like, tracking down Steve Lemmy was, that was, I mean, I was something I was hoping for. I had this idea that, trying to get out of, I think what firefighters are used to seeing on the cover of magazines, and try to pull in that, a little bit of celebrity status, somebody that is kind of breaking open how we, obviously it's exaggerations in some point, but how we run around the fire hall, we find that, amusing and it's fun. And so Steve, I was able to get a hold of him. I sent him an email. It went to his agent, and he sent me back an email the next day and said he would be honored to work with us and do a story. So again, it was just, and it was just, for me, I was so excited to be talking with him, because I knew how excited firefighters were going to be about this. And I thought there's a certain noise level that firefighters have, and I think when you see a magazine, you just think it's going to be full of fluff and not really something that relates to them and things like that. So we have to get through that barrier for them to be able to pick up the magazine and actually look through it. So putting someone like Steve Lemmy on the cover and sharing a story about Steve, who the way that he interprets what's going on around our in the fire hall, like, it's just, to me, it kind of summarizes how funny we are or how foolish we are sometimes. But yeah, he's been just a great ally, and very, very open to, conversations. We email back and forth now. I like to consider him, a friend. Like we kind of, he's asking how things are going. He's helped out with some other things on, on the backside of things, and it was great. So he's been a great ally. So I'd like to continue finding celebrities or people that would be like, how did you get a hold of that person? Or, or that, this person's a winner. They're figuring things out, or, or they're just like you and I, and they're a firefighter, or, so I'm just trying to kind of have that, I want people to be excited. I want people to be excited by, and I guess the cover is the gateway to the rest of the magazine, or what they're going to find inside the pages. So yeah, very, very strategic.
Well, speaking as a Rescue Me fan, I'm waiting for you to get Dennis Leary on the cover, and then you get John Stewart, who's fighting for the 9/11 workers, and so yeah, I think you got good momentum now, right?
That's right. Well, I've actually, Dennis Leary was he's somebody that I've been trying to track down, and I haven't been able to yet. So so if he's listening, but yeah, no, definitely, the Rescue Me, I actually watched that with my wife, and we enjoyed that series. So it was, and she kind of got a glimpse. That was her first kind of real window into some of the fire hall stuff. She actually got a kick at it. Yeah. So yeah.
We had a new, so my department, I worked on a DoD installation, and so we would get a young airman. So I was in the military for 6 years, but I was a civilian after that for another 11. And as a civilian, we would train some of the young airmen in our department. And we had a kid that was like 18. I mean, he just got out of basic. He was coming to got out of Fire Academy. He's coming to our department to get trained. And he's 18 years old, and he's sitting there at roll call, just terrified, right? Because we had 17 guys on duty. And his chief on the reserve side was also his mentor on the civilian side. And he comes in and he's like, he's sitting there green, and they're asking him about firefighting questions. And somebody says, well, what firefighting movie made you become a firefighter? And he had no clue. He hadn't seen Backdraft. He hadn't seen Ladder 49. He hadn't seen Rescue Me. So Captain Daner goes, all right, I'll be right back. Runs to his room and brings in all the seasons of Rescue Me and sits them in front of him and says, your day one responsibility is to go watch these and then come back.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that's just, typical firehouse stuff. So
that's right. Yeah, no, it's, we thrive on that too. It's that balance. And so, yeah, but I'm finding as you longer you're there too, and you become a captain or platoon chief, someone that's been kind of a jokester or somebody, through your career too, and now you're starting to be serious. And so there's a play there too that becomes tricky, right? It's like that. How do you navigate all this stuff?
Yeah, that is tricky, and that is probably a subject of like a future publication, because it's challenging. I know in our department that was the case. You're a firefighter, and so our rank structure was a little bit different. You come in, we don't have like the privates. We had regular firefighters, driver operators, and then we had lieutenants and captains. But you start out on a pod of 7 team members, and like, so the whole time for years you're coming up through the firefighter ranks, riding the back seat, maybe filling in, driving, and maybe catch the seat on somebody has leave or scheduled leave or something. But for the most part, you're with the same group of guys for years. And then you pursue growth, pursue rank, and then you become the captain. And so it'd be tough to then go and now be the guy in charge of that same group of people. So one of the ways that they combated at our department was they would switch him to a new pod, so that they'd become the captain of a new pod with a different group of people. But that is a challenge, because some people don't want to leave that group. And so, and every department's different, has different makeups. So yeah, it's just another complexity within the fire service is how do you address that leadership change, go from being the jokester to now being the guy,
Yeah.
making sure you're bunkering out in time, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So again, just another thing that we need to figure out,
So one of the things you touched on that I think I wanted to come back to is the end of the career. As you come to the end of the career, transitioning out And I think, that's where I think being a firepreneur has lots of pros, has cons too, for sure, which we've talked about some of those, but some of the pros are you're kind of already starting to prepare for what life after the retirement is going to look like. Because I don't know the statistics on this, but I do know that a number of firefighters, once they leave and retire, they slowly, they lose interest in things, and then they rapidly decline, and some, die quickly thereafter. And it's just a tragedy because they gave a life of service. You want them to live out those years thereafter with, with fun and enjoyment and things like that. But so, what do you see the value in doing what you're doing is like by setting yourself up for something post fire department career? I mean, is that one of the things that you kind of championed with doing this project, is to kind of set yourself up with something once you leave the career?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I always say I'd rather be young and working than old and retired. So I will say that. I, I definitely, I need to be doing something. I need to be busy. When I do retire, I would like to be in a position that, I don't think I want to be grinding out as much as I am right now, trying to build something, but definitely trying to sustain something would be different. And yeah, just, this made sense to me to do now. I still have 12 years to go. So it's one of those things. I'm not really projecting that far ahead yet. I just want to get through the next 5 years is kind of where I'm at. And definitely, I mean, I think we've all lost somebody that after retirement in whether, it's just, we've all gone through that, and it breaks your heart every time. And somehow, I'm kind of, in some ways I'm scared to retire, because you're used to the hustle of a day to day and trying to be everywhere, and you have your group, and you're being around all these people. And then when you retire, how do you keep that network going? And part of it is, I think a lot of us, we kind of lose a bit of ourselves. And when we're not part of the fire department on a day to day, and running things. So I think, I don't look forward to retirement, only because, I don't think I have it figured out yet, what that would even look like. And it'll be hard. I mean, I definitely know that I want to be in a position to it would be awesome to be able to invest in other companies, or be in a position where you can kind of help people that are kind of going through what I'm going through right now, and give them that little help, I guess. And I think that would be a great position to be in.
Yeah, I think when I know it's 12 years away, so it's still a long ways away for you to think about. But the experience of being a firepreneur, or just taking your firefighting experience and planning for what's going to happen afterwards. I just feel like the career field it's so uniquely qualifies people to be able to lead other people in life, and in organizations, because the career field you are expected to be kind of a jack of all trades, and therefore it's impossible to master all of them. And so, like, being able to deal with those complexities, being able to make, decisions in chaos, inside of chaos, triaging with inside of the, the emergency inside of the emergency. There's these life skills that you learn, and then you do it for a sustained period of time. You're talking about decades. Those skills, I just feel like uniquely qualify people to go out and mentor and lead young people, and, produce more leaders. So like that's the thing about firefighting, is trying to find how do you extract some of that life experience and get it into the hands of other people, and so I think the magazine is a good outlet for that. That's what we're trying to do with firepreneurs as well. It's just help people along their leadership journey, because 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, there's a lot to learn from a 50-year-old retired firefighter,
Yeah, I always, when a firefighter retires, you lose so much experience. And it in a way it's great that they made it, and then in another way it sucks that they're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely that. And then you become, it's like I always say, like, you want to be at the back of the bus as you go through grade school, you sit at the front of the bus, and as you grow up, you're trying to get to that back seat. And then when you're at the back seat, you realize that they're the life of it. Like, they're the ones that have to control the conversation, and there's no one to look back at anymore. And you realize that it's not as fun as it looked on from the other side. So, I think being in a middle part of my career is kind of right where I want to be right now. To be honest, I'm trying to absorb where I'm at and just try to enjoy, kind of going to work and filling the position that I have right now. So
From the middle of your career, I assume that you're transitioning into some of these leadership positions that we're talking about. How has that helped prepare you for, the challenges you're facing on the business side? Is there anything that you can draw on?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's like trying to get through the courses and working towards your captaincy. So that it's playing in on a workload side of things, but it's also helping me. I always say, like, I hope one makes me better at the other, and I think that couldn't be more true. And it's I'm kind of excited to be kind of coming into this part of my career. Like, I'm an acting rank now, and things are going to be changing where I'm acting more and more every day, and then that transition. But I welcome it. I look forward to it. I think it's to me, I look at the mid-seated firefighters are the ones that really should be the ones sinking their teeth into things. When you're newer and starting your career, like, say, first 8 years, you're learning, you're developing, and you're going along a lot of the time. And then when we talked about looking at retirement, well, there's an end of days. So you start shutting down, right? Turn some of the afterburners off because you're starting to coast. So to me, that mid-seated firefighter, whether you're a captain or not, it doesn't matter to me. It's just that you've been there long enough that you know how things are going, but yet you still have a lot of career left to go. And I think I'm in a position now and where I am that is the ones that need to be trying to fight for new things that is there after we're gone. Now's the time to really be trying to make the place better, or get to calls faster, or have better equipment, or bring in wellness programs, or and we're the ones that I think are carrying the most weight right now. And it's not we want our senior firefighters, like, again, back of the bus, we want them to do it, but we are the ones that need to be doing it. It's us. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Do you think, because one of the things I liked about running a business while being a firefighter is, especially I worked for the DOD, but even in St. Thomas is probably a municipal department or part of a city, so therefore part of a government. And sometimes the governments turn like a aircraft carrier instead of a speedboat when you want to make changes. So I kind of liked the fact that I could see things that I wanted to maybe improve, but sometimes weren't able to be improved because of the fact that it was a government institution. But then, okay, well, then I'll go do it at my business. And I would be able to go and try out these thought experiments in a business and be able to see some of the effectiveness of that. Have you had any experiences like that where you've wanted to try something in the fire department and make an improvement, but then maybe run up against a wall, but then gone and tried it in your business career?
I probably have. Nothing's coming to mind, but I'm sure I have. Or the other way, where something was implemented and then I thought that was a good idea and then implemented it, in the business side of things too. I think, I definitely, trusting people is the biggest thing. Is the last thing I want someone to do is tell me what I can and can't do, like, as far as what I can achieve or not achieve. And I think as a fire service, we want to be able to empower people there as well, and see what they're made of, give them an opportunity to lead something. And there's a lot of times where people do bring ideas forward and then they get, we'll say, shut down. It could be for many reasons, but to them, they feel shut down. And then they start saying, well, I've already tried and there's no point in it because, so, I think we have to really have our, being a peer, being able to talk to these firefighters, because that starts to become repression in a way. Is you have your own ideals, and it's like the kid that's asking for something and you keep saying no, 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 and eventually they're starting to internalize. So we're doing that to our firefighters too, and we can't implement every thought and every idea, but they definitely have to feel valued and that they're heard, I think, is and or understand why that this can't happen right now because of budget or whatever. But I think I definitely know, in the trenches where firefighters have felt kind of beat down, where they've tried, maybe it was too early in their career, they were trying to do things, but to me, it doesn't matter how long you've been there. A good idea is a good idea. And, but so there's definitely that to be looking for. So again, in this, I mean, I'm trying to control a lot of things right now in what I'm doing because I don't know what it is I'm trying to do. I'm getting every day I get a better picture of what the magazine is. But when I started, I needed full control, and I felt I needed full control. And that's where I need to learn and grow and to delegate more. And definitely something I can transition into the fire hall is delegation is the most, I feel the most empowered when I was delegated to, but yet I want to do everything myself. And then that's where I need to grow, I think, as an individual or as a firefighter and as a business owner.
Yeah, I liked on the other side, I would come over in the business and try things. Well, I know this will work over here, so I'll go try it over here. I'd fail, make mistakes, and learn very valuable leadership lessons that were very humbling. And then I would actually take that lesson I learned in my business, and it would make me a better firefighter, or it would make me a better leader. So I think, you talked about this in our conversation before this, which was the having the both. It gives you fresh perspectives on things, as opposed to getting in the scenario where you might have the blinders on. It's always nice to have different perspectives on tackling the challenges of being a firefighter.
Yeah. Having a business is definitely, one thing, but even if you're into some sport, fishing or games or like, having something on the side is, I think, a big part of, the way that we operate. I think it's that distraction in between our days off. And when we think about what we're actually doing at the fire hall, I find that my days off, I feel like I've been off for 5 weeks. Like I come back kind of refreshed, and just because so many things have happened, and cool things and things I want to tell people, and I've met new people, and getting out in the world. That's why I think I like the sales, because I was going to trade shows and stuff in between shifts, and so meanwhile I've been halfway across the country, and then I come back and everyone's still right where you left them, right? They don't have any stories. That's a hard go, I think. I think it's definitely get involved with something that passes your time away and gives you something to be excited about. Some people, they chase their kids around, and that's good. Maybe you had a hockey tournament and then you're gone all weekend, and now you're back on Monday, and but you've done something. Your brain has thought about something else for those days. So
that's well said. So when you think about your business today, Crackle, so we're getting it going, getting ready to have a third issue come out. You have a fourth one this year. What are some of the challenges you face as a full-time firefighter and building this business, building this magazine? What are some challenges you're facing today as a leader?
Yeah, definitely just the growth. So trying to be better, do better, and then balance that, and then partition. So when I'm at work, as I get busier and busier, being able to be present when I'm at the fire hall. And then when I'm home, be able to maximize that time. Definitely try to control what I can. Working out is a big, something I make time for daily. And that helps. Definitely the balance moving forward. I would like to continue kind of doing a lot of the same things, keep challenging in the sense of getting better with promoting it. Definitely with any business, it doesn't matter how good it is, you need to promote it and trying to figure out the best way to do those things and align yourself with people that, can, maybe they've been there and done it too. Like, I mean, I think we all need mentors. And I think finding the right people that have done it, and kind of aligning with them, and then, kind of learning from them. So definitely moving forward, it's that growth. I'm at the point where, I'd like to do other things with the magazine, like looking into getting into apparel and things like that. And sourcing new things. Any new initiative takes a ton of time and a ton of energy. And I kind of say that the last thing I need right now is another good idea. So it's just finding, again, what to say no to, what to say not now to, and then something that you're like, I'm absolutely jumping on this, opportunity right now. So
I can imagine too, with your line of work, you come from the fire department, then even when you're there or off duty, how do you block off? Because I imagine you have to block off time just to like creative thinking time. Do you find it like do you have like a calendar hack or like do you hack yourself? Like how do you block off or find that time for the creativity? I imagine it's got to be a challenge for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's constant, right? And constant. I try to, I mean, definitely on my notes on my phone, when things kind of come to me, I write them down, just a thought, especially if it's something I don't have time to really get around to. I find creativity comes to me when I least expect it. I could sit down and try to, have some ideas, and they do go places, but I'm definitely, it's like I always just have it in the back of my mind that I'm trying to figure out, maybe it's a new article topic or something, where I don't just sit down and try to think about it. It's just always running in the back of my mind. And when I'm doing something else, typically it'll kind of hit me. It happened yesterday with our apparel. I'm trying to come up with some ideas and concepts. I liked one part of what we had, but I didn't fully understand how it was going to come full circle. And then it just kind of hit me. I was, and it seemed to kind of make sense. And then it took you to a whole new world of, and then at that moment I became creative, because it was like I was kind of stuck. And then it was like everything opened up, and then I had to be creative. So I literally had to push things away and be creative in that moment. And then it lasted a few minutes, and I felt like I had enough to come back to later on when I needed to kind of be in a different brain to develop those thoughts.
So tough, right? The start, stop, the push, pull, because like you have the moments of creativity, and then when they hit you, you stop what you were working on. You're like, I'll come back to that. And then you let yourself run. I mean, I don't have a magazine, but I still have to, marketing our business and growing it, there has to be some time for me to be able to be creative. And then you look at something that, and it's hard to explain this, but like there's a task that's on your to-do list and it really only takes 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But all you need is 5 to 10 focused minutes. And those 5 to 10 focused minutes sometimes are the hardest minutes to find, because distractions will come, or you have to put out metaphorical fires in your business, or the creativity bug will hit you. And then you know how rare that is. So then you run with it. And that one task that's 5 to 10 minutes of work is still sitting there the next morning when you come back in. It's a constant push pull or start stop of work and creativity.
Yeah. And I like to look at kind of work as pipelines. So it's like this came from a sales background, where you're trying to keep pipelines full of prospecting, and then as these were prospects last week, now you've got a meeting with them, so their sales journey is moving along. And so I like to kind of run the business that way. I have pipelines where I'm trying to come up with article ideas. I'm trying to come up with people I want to get in touch with. I have pipelines of my goals and wishes for the next short term, 3 months, or, that type of thing. So I think anytime you're in a business, you have to, it's like that past, present, future. And one, you have to know where you're at. You have to know where, have the notepads and, things and thoughts to know how you got to where you're at. And then also looking for the future. I'm not sure that, as far as the mind split on all that, but I don't think it'd be equal. But definitely I would say, 20% looking backwards. I would say, 60% where you're at, and then, 20 where you're going, and try to have that idea.
What do you think now that you've opened up this world with Crackle and the different topics, as you've kind of uncovered, you did your year of research and development and you put a couple out now and you've got another one coming out. What do you think is like one of the biggest problems plaguing firefighting right now? If you were to pick one that's like, seems to have unveiled itself to you as like the number one pressing issue.
Oh, I would say probably the not putting yourself in, like internalizing too much. I think we have this, we're looking this far in front of our face, and not stepping back and kind of looking big picture. I've had last couple of days, I'll be honest, I've been overwhelmed. I don't know. I don't really even know why. I don't know if it was, things were going great. But yet I found that there wasn't enough time. So I would say that's probably why it was, just things I was trying to get to. Maybe it goes back to that, things that needed 5 minutes to get done. It felt like a dream where it's just, that time was just going, and it was kind of, everyone was in on the joke, but you. But you step back and say, well, why the hell am I so stressed out about stuff that's not, even if I did this task right now, my world does not crumble. Why am I feeling so like it has to happen? Or so, yeah. So it's kind of that stepping back, and making time for those around you. And if your kids are young and you're a young firefighter, be in the moment. Don't worry about, maybe starting a business at this time. Maybe you focus, your kids are only little, like for so long. You just absorb that and learn from them. Like go to the park with them and walk slower than you want to walk, and just, try to just absorb that time, because it's short. And then, you can be thinking about other things and wanting to grow, and maybe you want to start a deck building company. And then, but if you step back and say, I can start that in a year from now too, when my kids will be in school, then it makes more sense to do that. Or, it's just that big picture. For me, it made sense to start this now. Me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do it, so just because of I don't think the timing would have been there. Yeah. So I think you have to look at everything,
It's a good point for sure. Because that is there's like this competitive side of firefighters too, where, you see somebody else doing something like, well, they've got a business and right. I'm a firefighter and they've got a business. They're a firefighter and they got a business. I got to do mine right now. But what you just said is so valuable, because it doesn't mean that you don't do it. It just might mean that you pause, reflect on whether the timing is right. Because, like you just mentioned, like I wouldn't have done this 5 years ago, but at that time you were just doing the sales, where you didn't have the responsibility of being the business owner,
Right. That's right.
And then you waited, and now the time is right. And I think that's a good takeaway for anybody listening, is not to say that you have to be a firepreneur today. You don't have to start your side hustle today. You might have to plan it and maybe I think live in the moment. Right.
And picking your side hustle is, let's go back to the deck building. So yeah, you can build decks. So you're going to work all week at the fire hall, and then you're going to go and you're going to, bust your ass. Basically, you have to leave your house to go do that job. So, right. You have to meet with people. You have to quote them. You have to go and buy material. You have to bring the material back. You have to set up dates. You have to worry about weather. There's a lot of pieces in there that you have no control about. And then, then there's the work. So you're in the sun all day. You're away from, you can't go to your kids field trip because it's a sunny day and you missed yesterday, and now you're handcuffed to do this job. So I think you have to pick wisely. And with sales, for me, it worked great because it was something that I didn't have to leave my house to go do half the time. I could, when the kids are sleeping, I could come down to my office and I could make some calls. And then when they were awake or whatever, then I would, join back in. So it was, it was something that made sense to me. I also kind of did the refrigeration for 3 years when I got hired in the fire department. And I found it was a tough go. And because I would get home, change, jump in the service van, report to the office, get my calls and things for the day. And then I would check out, usually 3:00 was my kind of window to start getting back to the shop, to unload the truck, to get home, to head back to work for 4:30 to make it for 5:30. So it was a tough existence, and I was tired, and, I didn't eat properly all day. So it's just, you have to find that balance. And I think choosing what you're going to do, you have to make sure that you've kind of looked what the next 4 years of development are going to look like for that type of career. And some people may say, absolutely, this is not a problem because of their network or their family, or someone's going to watch the kids or whatever it is. Then, but those things have to be factored in. Otherwise, you end up being in a trap where you've spent money on overhead, and yet you didn't really have the time, or you're somebody that just feels guilty. So if you're someone that feels guilty about not being with your kids because you're working a side job to help go for, maybe take an extra trip in the year, does that really make sense? You may, and I'm saying to the individual, that may not make sense. We think we want a side hustle, but it's just got to be the right side hustle, I think, for where you're at and what you want to do. But on the flip side, there's people that are, in businesses, and they're just, they're making such a difference, whether it's a auto extrication business on the side, and they're just, some people just have to do these things, and they're so good at it. And I think, we may hopefully fall into that category. But I think definitely just look long-term and make sure it's a fit for you, at least for now, or you wait.
Good input. I think it's well timed too, So talk to us about what's coming on the radar for what can we see from Crackle? What are we going to see from Crackle in the months and years to come?
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to see more of a presence. I want to keep exploring some of these things that we've started, and tie in with bigger agencies. One we just secured, we're working with Movember. So the organization, they're worldwide. We've been working with the Firefighter World Games. So I started this to be a North American publication, and it's starting to kind of get a world feel to it. So, which is kind of exciting because it wasn't something I was really going for, to be honest. I think it's like, do one thing, do it well. It was focusing on this North American firefighter. But obviously the synergies between firefighting, it's all the same, and it makes absolute sense that someone on a different continent would enjoy the content because they're going through it the same. So it's something that was I would like to see more of a worldwide feel to it, but still focus on what our initiatives are. And I just want to kind of, again, like I did with the book, and then created an expo. I would like to make, the magazine is one thing. I would like to kind of get out more, trade shows, stuff like that, be more involved and kind of, make sure I'm in the trenches with the firefighters that we're trying, or that are enjoying this content.
So FDIC, you're going to be at FDIC in the future, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
In my neck of woods then.
Yeah. And it's travel, like right now, we still can't travel, and things like that. So we've had people that were turned away at the border, and that's the reality. And I would say the climate that we're in right now still. So, yeah, that's definitely where we're going is trade shows and just, again, sustainability. So try to have people in play that can help us get to the next level, and be more sustainable. Obviously, advertising is a huge part of us being able, it's everything to be able to keep our lights on. So it's advertising is what we need to keep giving our information away. So we haven't mentioned this, but our digital magazine is free to download and to sign up. So and our past issues are there and they're archived. So everybody has access to this content. So, if you're a fire department, and you want, subscriptions digitally for your members to have access to this stuff, we encourage that. Definitely get a hold of us and we can set up, there's different ways that we can get that information out, or subscriptions. If you want copies mailed to the fire hall door, then that's the business that we're in. We those costs are basically just being covered. The print and delivery, it's the business model. I wanted to put together a large, thick magazine with a high gloss cover and things like that, but the shipping costs on that and on trying to put out a product like this is, I pay through the nose. And but it's great. I wouldn't change it, but definitely having the support and people that want to see it and physically hold this magazine, then it's I definitely encourage to get involved. And that's, again, we're trying to offer a different platform for this information. But I think print is not dead. People still like to hold something in their hand, and and it's just something that it's you can't beat it. You can't beat the print quality. So
we'll have a hard copy here at Fire Dogs HQ, so we'll be one of your hard copy subscribers.
Awesome.
So if anybody wanted to connect, how could they, if they wanted to sign up for the digital copy, they wanted to get a hard copy sent to their fire department or their place of business, with it cracklemag.com? Is that where they sign up?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they can. Those options are there on our website, so you can hit the subscribe button and then choose the capacity in which you want to subscribe. But yeah, definitely, at the very least, the digital issue, get your eyes on this, see what we've been up to, and we hope you kind of enjoy it as you learn. And I know, I'm quite confident that there's takeaways that will be happening. So.
Well, as we idle down here, Kory, how would if somebody wanted to reach out to you, learn more, or connect with you? Where some places that the audience could reach you?
LinkedIn. I'm active on there. Our social media channels, so at Crackle Mag, Instagram, you would get a hold of me through that as well, and then the website through the contact us. So and Facebook. So I have everything where you can, on my LinkedIn profile, I think my phone number is even on there. So it's, we try to be accessible, and I'm a big believer in the phone rings, you pick up the phone. So, old school business. It's
right.
You say you're going to do something, hopefully you under promise and over deliver. And I think that's pretty much what Crackle kind of stands for. So.
We'll put all the links in the episode notes and in our descriptions as well. So we'll make sure that the audience can find you easily. Kory, thank you for your service as a firefighter for 18 years. And thank you for having your why of starting this magazine. I think it's going to be really impactful, and I'm excited to see what you do with it. And last, thank you for coming on the Firepreneurs podcast, my man.
Well, thank you very much. And, it was honored to be here. So
thanks, Kory.
Thanks for what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good day, audience.
Thanks for joining Firepreneurs today. We hope that we delivered value in your leadership journey. We humbly ask that you take the time to leave us a 5-star review, as that's how our podcast will rise in rankings and become available to more people. We'd love to hear from you, so you can email us by emailing firepreneurs@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or by watching us on our Firepreneurs YouTube channel. Stay hungry and get after it.